Welcome, dear members, to this exclusive, members-only virtual presentation of the Christian Dior exhibition. I'm Chloe Guillaume, coordinator of the membership service, and it's my pleasure to introduce our host for today's presentation. Cynthia Cooper, head of the collection and research and curator of dress, fashion and textiles for the McCord Museum since 1998. She oversees the largest museum collection of Canadian dress consisting over 20,000 items. We also welcome today Alexandra Palmer, senior curator, Nora Vaughan fashion costume curatorship at the Royal Ontario Museum and curator of this exhibition. We hope that this presentation will serve as a great introduction to the fascinating world of Christian Dior, and that we will see you soon at the museum to discover the magnificence of the creation in real life. Have a wonderful time.
Oh, welcome to Christian Dior at the McCord Museum. This exhibition looks at the first 10 years of the House of Dior from 1947 to 1957, the years of Monsieur Dior himself. It looks at dresses from the collection of the Royal Ontario Museum and the McCord Museum to examine what it was about Dior, what it was about this house that lasts till today, and what made him so fantastically popular during the 1950s and a legacy of over 70 years. The way the clothes were made in the ateliers was an important part of what made Dior. His new dressmaking techniques were fantastic. The ateliers were divided into the flou, which is dressmaking, draped and soft materials, and tailoring. In 1947, when Dior opened his house in February, he presented this collection that Carmel Snow, the editor of Harper's Bazaar, called The New Look, and that's the name that it was known for till today. The New Look had soft shoulders, small waists, lots of material. This suit, Zigamar, a tailored suit, was shocking at the time. It had lots of pockets. It had pleats in the back. It actually has two kind of fronts in it. So it used a lot of material. And this was something very different after the war, when Americans had wartime restrictions, Canadians had restrictions, and in fact in Canada they said you couldn't have cloth on cloth, and here we have cloth on cloth on cloth. Dior made dresses for every occasion, of course, from daytime to evening. So these clothes with tiny little waists, long skirts and soft shoulders made Dior a household name. He was on the cover of Time magazine. He was known everywhere. The house has extraordinary records, so we know who the dress was made for, what atelier it was made for, and the mannequin. The exhibition is divided into different sections or zones that look at daytime and what women needed for day and how Dior solved those problems. Primarily wools and soft fabrics for spring and fall, 2 collections a year, that were made for women who had to go shopping, had to do things during the day, had to attend meetings, create things like art galleries. This suit, called A, was the lead design in his A-line collection. Dior also had Christian Dior New York quickly that opened. This suit is an early one from the New York line. These things were made in New York by Christian Dior, but with slightly less difficult couture techniques.
This is a dress from the McCord collection, and we've added some 11 garments to the show, and it has those wonderful padded hips that Dior became celebrated for with the new look.
So this piece is actually many pieces. It's a jacket, a top, and a pleated skirt. The exhibition then looks at afternoon wear or late afternoon wear and cocktail wear. Cocktails were a new kind of drink, a new kind of occasion that occurred in post-war that required different kinds of clothes. One thing about the new look was the very long hemline, the very long length, which of course required more material, which manufacturers had to produce. The problem with the new look, when it opened in 1947, it made everything before that completely obsolete. So if indeed this was the way women were going to dress, then you had to completely transform your wardrobe. So Dior watching throughout the 1950s, looking at hemlines, looking at lengths became really important as manufacturers and people didn't want to be out of step with the times, as had happened when he opened. This dress, Soirée Romantique, uses over 300 meters of velvet ribbon. These velvet ribbons are in 6 different widths, made by one manufacturer. And Dior, in this case, I feel, was very, very directly using the ribbon makers who were in terrible straits after the war. The lace dress uses over 400 meters of lace. And in this case, he was supporting the lace making industry, another industry that was having very difficult times after the war. So without beaders, lace makers, ribbon makers, you can't produce these beautiful clothes that are the symbols of haute couture. So while Dior looked at historical techniques such as corset making, he also looked for modern things. So this dress is actually one of his kind of convertible dresses, as is this too, as it has a top that comes off and it's sexier when you take it off. And in fact, the woman who wore it got a nice remark from a man when she took off the jacket, and he sort of said, wow, because it has a very low back.
This is a McCord dress. It's actually a 3-piece garment with a separate little corset and the bodice that goes over top.
This dress nocturne, a beautiful cocktail dress worn for dinners at home because it would have been too flashy to go out and you wouldn't want to upstage your hostess, was worn by Mrs. John David Eaton, who was the wife of the vice president of Eaton's department store in Canada. And this dress, worn by Nora Vaughan, is embroidered by Rebet Centième, and it's only got 5 different kinds of beads in it, but it's what he's done with it and the artistry of the design that makes it so beautiful and special. Dior Rouge was Rouge Dior was a very important Dior color, a signature of his line that he kept in again and again, this very, very rich color, and here done in a plaid.
This dress is also from the McCord collection, and the pleating technique is extraordinary. You have these sections of tight goffered pleats and then a very wide, flat pleat.
So Dior died in 1957, having created this fantastic house. He only had 22 collections. The house was 10 years old when he died, and it was a shock to everyone. And these black dresses were also a signature and very popular because, of course, they last forever, and the little black dress was very important since Chanel. Dior's corsets were incredibly important. These little evening dresses, one embroidered, and one in this new material called alouetine, made by Staron. Dior created a whole world of Christian Dior. Boutiques were well established by couturiers even before the war. Paul Poiret did the first one, but Dior took it further. He had licensings. He opened a Grande Boutique in 1955 that still exists in Paris on the Avenue Montaigne. And he wanted you to be able to capture a little bit of Dior. If you couldn't afford a dress, maybe you could have a lipstick. Christian Dior, Holt Renfrew in 1951 signed an exclusive license with Christian Dior to be the only shop in Canada to carry his products. And this was very important. They had couture, millinery, hosiery. Dior Parfum, which had opened, begun in 1947 when the house opened, Miss Dior, an incredibly powerful perfume that works to this day, and that was sprayed throughout the house when he opened it. Here in this beautiful bottle, the amphore shape, a classical shape, and here presented in this wonderful display unit that's based on the Temple of Love and the Versailles, the Petit Trianon, created by Marie Antoinette, and here lovingly made in Dior Grey, another signature color that works beautifully to this day, a very soft kind of dove grey with passementerie details and the amphore in the middle. Dior made a licensing agreement with Hellman in New York to make his shoes and make them available. Roger Vivier was his favorite designer for shoes. And actually, this is the Légion d'honneur given to Alvin Walker, the president of Holt Renfrew, for his work with Dior and Dior labels. Miss Dior was also made in other packets, an eau de cologne in this travel pack. perfume for your purse. Beautiful jewelry designed by the most leading makers. That was for day. This is obviously for evening or late day. And Dior looked at very classical things and used like 18th century bows and rhinestones and ideas like that. And he also made things that were very modern and maybe more whimsical, such as this design, Maintenant, made by Henkel and Grossel, that also is a very joyful and very modern kind of 50s piece. He also used Lily of the Valley, not only in the perfume, it was his signature flower, it was his good luck flower, and he made that beautiful necklace. These amphores are for your dressing table. This obelisk, a signature of Paris, and then the little one beside it is another lipstick for your dressing table. So your whole world could be created and be punctuated by Dior. He made gloves for day, afternoon and evening, and those would match your outfit. They would be all sorts of different materials. These dresses are from the McCord.
That's right. We present 4 dresses which were bonded models. The exhibition will tell you a little bit more about what that means. These were worn by Margaret Rawlings Hart, who had a lot of Dior in her wardrobe. And this dress, Bonne Nouvelle, was one that she wore to receive first prize in a flower arranging competition in 1952.
Prints were very important for Dior, and very few of them survive, so these are wonderful.
Right, and this one was a bonded model. It would have arrived in Montreal in the sample size, but she was not the sample size, so she had the pleated skirt unmade and remade into a gathered skirt.
So this zone, Making Dior, looks at those fournisseurs, the people who helped Dior become Dior, who he was very indebted to, and he talks about this. Dior wrote a lot about himself in his biography. This dress, Bamboo, Dior named every dress in every collection, made by Staron. Staron, or a manufacturer, would propose designs to a couturier, in this case, this textile in various colorways, that was made by Bruno Lecomte outside of Saint-Étienne, and it used 7 screens. Someone had to make all those beautiful sequins and beads that everyone used, that the embroiderers used on their samples. So these are samples from Eurel, a house that survives today. Rebet, who was a personal friend of Dior, his house is closed and he's passed away, as well as Ginestier Quinol, which was a house that we do not know enough about, a woman in Paris. So composing, these are samples that the beaters and manufacturers would propose to the couturiers, and they would select for their dresses. Petticoats, crinolines, corsets, very important for Dior to help you get that beautiful shape. This is an embroidery sample proposed by Rebet. It is on velvet. Dior changed the textile to linen and the colorway. The name of the design, Dior called it Pondichéry, which is a town in the south of India, an area that the French had colonized. So this is a kind of an Indian-inspired chinoiserie, 18th century, very free-flowing association of ideas with incredible embroidery in metal gilt, beautiful glass beaded sequins, glass beaded beads, or this is another design made out of lace that completely covers the inside of your jacket, so when you take it off you kind of have a wow effect. Evening wear, of course, being one of the most famous signatures of couture. Evening dress is very important, and women had a lot of balls and events to go to there in the post-war period. This dress, using yards and yards of material, weighing over 8 pounds. It was the weight, it was the look, it was the feel of Dior that was important.
These 2 dresses are McCord dresses. This one, Soirée de Décembre, has this wonderful detailing in the back. It belonged to a Molson. And then Cygne Noir belonged to Mrs. Hart, who we were introduced to in an earlier section. And it has a very effective contrast between silk satin and black velvet in that large, oversized bow.
Evening dresses could be very simple, such as this one, Vierge Folle, which actually is more complicated than it looks, and it has this tiny little corselet inside. Often the hems were never pressed. They were folded under and held up with the lining inside. So everything around a Dior dress, particularly evening and cocktail wear, was soft. The necklines were soft. There was always a space between you and the dress, so your face was framed like you were in a painting. This dress worn by Mona Campbell, a Toronto socialite, with a very, very tiny waist, and in these two shades of pink, a very early dress, the epitome of elegance. And it was actually a strapless dress that she had altered, because the strapless was a very daring post-war fashion called the naked look by one reporter. Dior also had a fantastically low décolletage. So this dress, Chandernagore, famously worn by Marlene Dietrich, had an extremely low neckline that was really quite dazzling at the time. And of course with Marlene, even if Dior covered her legs with his new look, at least you could see her beautiful breasts. This dress also worn by Mrs. Eaton, beautifully embroidered, very simple embroidery in fact, but the way the scale goes, the way the ribbon is, there's very few materials, so you don't need a lot to do something really clever. These incredibly spectacular dresses, Dior, the press called them Trafalgars, which made everyone wake up during a fashion show because they were so dazzling. This one called Palmyre is particularly interesting. Dior was a modernist as well as looking to the past. The textile is a silk, is a satin. It's made of Celanese materials. Celanese was an American manufacturer making man-made fibers. So the basis of this dress actually comes from forests pulped from BC in Canada. The pulp sent to Prince Rupert, where it was turned in, the wood pulped in Prince Rupert, then it was sent to the US to be turned into a fiber. The fiber was then sent to France, where it was made into a textile, this satin, by Robert Perrier, a French manufacturer. Then that satin was chosen by Ginestier Quinol and turned into this beautiful sample for an embroidery that Dior chose, and called it Palmyre, the dress Palmyre, named after the classical town. So it took a lot of people to make dresses. These three, the mother and her two daughters, is a story of a bat mitzvah that happened in Toronto by the Roebucks. Mrs. Roebuck persuaded her husband to give her daughter a bat mitzvah, which was a pretty radical new idea because it was only boys that got bar mitzvahed before. So this is the dress that she wore. It was a Dior dress. They came to Montreal to have it fitted and made in Holt, Renfrew, and her sister even wore this other little Dior. So it's the three ladies in their Dior. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this presentation of the exhibition. We hope you had a great time and would like to thank Alexandra Palmer and Cynthia Cooper for the insightful collaboration. The Christian Dior exhibition is produced by the Toronto Royal Ontario Museum and presented by Holt, Renfrew, Ogilvy. You can visit the Christian Dior exhibition until January 3rd. As a reminder, your membership allows access to the museum at all times with no mandatory reservation. We look forward to seeing you very soon, and in the meantime, have a wonderful day.